Welcome to March Madness here on ESPN, the Sweet 16 special from Michael Jordan's Restaurant here in Chicago as we discuss the Sweet 16 with our head coaches, Tim Floyd of Iowa State, who is in that Sweet 16, Kelvin Sampson of Oklahoma, and Kevin O'Neill of Northwestern. It's all coming up next as we discuss the Sweet 16.
Zoliak, it goes to Van Horn, he takes it in!
Illinois. We are down to 16 teams as we started with 64 just a week ago. And tonight we will discuss those teams. And we're going to start with you, Kelvin Sampson, because a week ago we asked you were going to pick to go to the Final Four, and one of your picks was Iowa State.
You know, and it was a good pick. Actually, I had 5 picks. I had DeFord and I had Iowa State. But if you've played against Tim's teams or if you've watched Tim's teams play in a tournament setting, I think that's what makes Iowa State really tough. They're hard to prepare for. They've got good guard play, got an outstanding scorer in Dedrick Willoughby. They've got Kelvin Cato, and I think Tim is a great preparer for the next game.
And Tim, you must be really prepared because you got a game on Thursday and you're here with us today. What do you think of this guy's prediction?
Well, you know, as far as preparing, I don't know how you prepare a team to do what we did against Cincinnati, because here's really what happened in that game. We shoot 88% from the free throw line, 57% from the three-point line, 55% from the field, and we win by 1. So it tells me against a great UCLA team that those numbers have to go up even higher, or we've got to guard a whole lot better to try to finish this tournament out.
Let's talk. We're going to talk obviously about the Sweet 16, but Kevin, we have you here, and you've left Tennessee to come back to Northwestern. The people here in Chicago are ecstatic, expecting you to do what Gary Barnett has done for football. I know it was a tough decision for you, but obviously now that you've made the move and you see this, it's got to be very comfortable.
Well, really a tough decision, John, in that we had great young players that I liked a whole lot. We started 4 freshmen and a sophomore that led the league in scoring and had a great class coming in. But Northwestern and the city of Chicago are a great attraction, and I think we've got a good sell, and I think we've got a great league to play in. So I'm here, and we're going to get it going.
All right, and everybody here, as we mentioned, happy to hear about that. Let's talk about some of the teams that are surprises. And, you know, I don't think we can label you a surprise because you were a number 6 seed, and Kelvin picked you to get there, so obviously he knew what he was talking about. But let's talk about some of the other squads. Stanford, in fact, comes up because here is a squad that a lot of people didn't pay a lot of attention to down the stretch, wondering whether or not they were going to get into the tournament. But having Brevin Knight changes a lot of things.
I think it does. I think this time of the year you have to have great backcourt play, and Brevin Knight's as good as there is in the country. I think having a great defensive center or presence in the post also helps, and they have that in the big fella. Kelvin, help me with the name.
Tim Young.
Tim Young, yes. 7'1", about 260 pounds. It takes up a lot of space, and they can play inside and out off of those two guys. Mike's teams have always defended extremely well, and shot selection has always been a premium to his teams, and I think that their matchup is very interesting.
It certainly is. And the Texas Longhorns, and Tom Penders was here with us last week and talking about only winning 16 games, but he played such a tough schedule. I don't think many are surprised that he reached the Sweet 16.
Well, if you listen to Tom talk about his schedule, you'd swear he played the NBA East. You know, but I think you have to give Texas a lot of credit for the courage to play those teams. Not very many of us want to play a non-conference schedule like that, and I think that did have a factor getting Tom's team in, but they're playing their best basketball right now. I used to work with a guy by the name of Judd Heathcote, and he always said about March, the best teams don't always win. It's the teams that play the best. And that's what a lot of these teams are doing, namely Texas.
Yeah, we have certainly seen that over this past week, that some of these teams that didn't look like they had that much left at the end of the season playing extremely well in the tournament. All right, straight ahead, we're going to talk about the West and the Midwest, so stick around. It's the Sweet 16 special here on ESPN.
ESPN March Madness Sweet 16 Special is being brought to you by Mountain Dew, who reminds you to do the do. By Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Miller Lite, who reminds you that anything can happen at Miller time.
Welcome back to Chicago, inside Michael Jordan's restaurant as we count down the Sweet 16. We're going to start in the West. Kentucky, the #1 seed against St. Joseph's. What a year Phil Martelli has had with that squad. Stanford will face Utah. The Utes looking very good as well. Now, speaking of #1 seeds, when you talk about Kentucky, they are the #1 seed, as I mentioned. And over the last 5 years, the #1 seed has come away with the national championship. It has been one of the 4 #1 seeds: Kentucky, UCLA, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Duke, all on a roll. Now, let's talk about this Kentucky-St. Joseph's matchup. When you look at Kentucky, you expect that they were going to stumble a little bit with the loss of Anderson. They lost 3 #1 draft picks to the NBA last year and still managed to get a #1 seed, and for many, a favorite to win it all.
I think a great credit to Rick. Rick's had such good talent and developed such good talent that people underestimate him as a coach. He's a great coach. His teams play extremely hard. And I think he did a great job of motivating his team to rally around the loss of Anderson. And other guys stepped up. Padgett stepped up. I think Epps is maybe the most underrated point guard in the country, the real glue to their team. I'm a big Kentucky fan because I've been bashed by them a few times. I know how good they are. And we played them. They didn't play very well at the end of the regular season. They struggled a little bit. They had too many emotional games in a row, but he's rallied them, and they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, one of the things with the team, everybody talks about how they run up and down the floor, but they have good size as well.
And they have a good half-court offense. I think that one of the keys to being really good in March, especially in the tournament, is you've got to be able to play 47 feet. You know, in non-conference and certain conference games, you can play 94 feet and get away with it, but come tournament time, the one common denominator is all the teams play good half-court defense. So if you're going to play against a good half-court defensive team, you better be a good half-court offensive team, and Rick's teams are really good at that.
Now, one weakness, perhaps, Tim, is the fact that sometimes they can get out-rebounded, which is tough to believe with some of the size that they had, but it happened, in fact, in the tournament against Iowa.
Yes, you know, I think that they make up for that in a lot of different ways by getting to the free throw line and getting cheap baskets. They do have an ability. I think they go back to the offensive board very well, and they create so many baskets off of their defense. I think it overcomes the lack of rebounding that they've had here in the last couple weeks of the season.
I'll throw this one out to all of you. Is there a weakness anywhere on this team?
Kentucky, if there's a weakness, it's the fact that they sometimes have inconsistent inside play only because they're young. McGlure and Nazir Muhammad, occasionally because they're young, struggle a little bit, but together it's like a two-headed monster in the center. One of them's usually going to play good, and that usually gets them through. All
right, against St. Joseph's now. St. Joseph's is a team that will tend to jack up the three-pointers that they did against Boston College, 43, in fact. Can they live with that and move on in the tournament?
John, I noticed that you didn't say St. Joseph's of PA.
Yeah,
okay, I think we all learned that lesson last week. Hey, St. Joseph's is a team that really believes right now, and the coach has got them playing extremely hard. Love their perimeter play, and they do a lot of penetration and kick. Again, a team that's scoring off of their defense, and I think typical of most of the teams that are playing in the final couple of weeks here, great backcourt play.
And Coach Martelli did make a statement, do not call us St. Joseph, Pennsylvania, because there are no other St. Josephs. Who do you like in this game?
Well, I think that Kentucky's kids are on a mission. I think that they want to prove that even though some of these guys were not main forces for the team last year, that this is a good team because of them. I think Patino's had the experience of being where in the Final Four, winning it all last year. I like Kentucky.
I'm a big Kentucky fan. Again, I think they can win the national title, and I just think they're too hard-nosed. I mean, when it gets right down to it, they used to be known for playing great full-court basketball. They're better half-court defensively than most people realize, And like Kelvin said, they're great half-court offensively now because they've got some guys that make plays in the half-court.
Tim, who do you like?
I'm going to take the upset. I'm going to take St. Joe's.
Oh, wow. Okay. We do
You know
not.
the coach's name?
I know it's St. Joe's.
St. Joe.
That's all you need to know. Let's take a look now at teams that are back into the Sweet 16, and Arizona, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisville, and Utah have made it back. And for Utah, a matchup against Stanford. Now, personally, I wonder if Stanford did handle Wake Forest and Tim Duncan, and Tim Duncan is the player of the year. But what Keith Van Horn gives you is a lot more versatility as far as coming away. He can knock down the three. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I think that Utah is a team that nobody in the field really wants to play right now. I'm surprised that Rick has that team playing as well as they are playing, because they lost a very key player last year in Brandon Jesse. And it appears to me that they're playing better than they were a year ago when they knocked us out of the NCAA field. Utah is a team that I have going to the Final Four. I like their purpose on the defensive end of the floor. All 5 guys can shoot it. I think we're seeing the emergence of an NBA player in addition to Van Horn and Doliak. I think we get credit for getting him started a year ago in the NCAA tournament. He had his career high against Iowa State when they knocked us out, and his first-team All-WAC player. But Utah is a team that I think is going to get it done.
In Stanford, Brev and I, we touched on him briefly in the opening of the show, but this is a guy who can kill you with the shot. Now, most people don't think about that. They think about his assists and giving it up, but he really does have both dimensions.
You know, Stanford's a team that not only Brevin Knight, but they were the most physical team that we played against this year. And understand, we played Kansas, we played Iowa State. The Big 12 is a very physical league, but Stanford was the most physical team we played. Their strength inside, figuratively and literally, is almost intimidating. But the guy that makes them go is Brevin Knight. He's really good at the end of the shot clock. When plays break down, when the X's and O's don't work, he makes the play work, because he can go get you a shot. He can get himself a shot, and he can get those other guys a shot. And they're a really good offensive rebounding team. And like Tim picked St. Joseph's, I'm going to pick Stanford in an upset. That game is played in San Jose, right in Stanford's backyard. So I think that might be a little factor, too.
Yeah, real quickly, who do you like?
I'm picking Utah. I'm a big Rick fan, basketball-aholic, the whole deal. I think he and Tim are very similar. Their teams are really well prepared all the time. They defend you well, and I think in a one-game shot like that, I'd pick Utah.
I know you like Utah because you have them going to the Final Four. All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at players that should or should. Welcome back to Michael Jordan's Restaurant here in Chicago. Let's move on to the Midwest. In San Antonio, Minnesota against Clemson. Clem against Clemson. Then Iowa State taking on UCLA. Kelvin, we'll start with you in that Minnesota-Clemson matchup. I think there's a lot of people waiting for Clemson to stumble down the end of the season, but Clem has some terrific players, and he's proving that they belonged last year and that he's one of the top coaches right now.
Clem Haskins, year in and year out, has done a great job. If you go back to Western Kentucky, he did an unbelievable job at Western Kentucky, and he's continued that at the Big Ten at a school where people may think you can't get it done year in and year out, but Clem has done that. And I think his kids are on a mission. I think it's difficult to prepare and play for a team psychologically that feel like they have something to prove. And I think Minnesota kids have something to prove.
And when you look at Clemson, Rick Barnes plays that tight defense. He wants the game to be in the 50s, and usually is if he is winning.
I'm a Clemson fan because I really like Buckner and McIntyre. I think they both have big heart. I think you need a great guard, and you need a real guy that brings your team together. I think Buckner glues their whole team together. I think he's tough, hard-nosed, does a lot of great things, kind of a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none guy.
All right, now, Tim, as you're preparing for UCLA, we're going to throw up some numbers at you. The scoring averages in the tournament of the UCLA Bruins. Henderson on top with 21+, Charles O'Bannon with 21, McCoy, and so on down the list. Cameron Dollar's not even supposed to be a scorer, but he's got 12 points a game. And Toby Bailey, as you look at those numbers, what comes to mind?
Well, given that we just scored 67 in our last game, it looks like a scary movie to me, you know, looking at those numbers. They can get you in a lot of different ways. We talked about it earlier. Very, very talented team. Their personnel jumps out at you. But this team's playing inspired, and they're believing in themselves. They've won 12 games in a row. Their coach has them playing with tremendous energy on the defensive end. They're using that energy on the offensive boards. Very difficult to keep off the glass. Dollar makes them go. And we just can't let him turn the corner and get by us all night long. If that's happening, that's creating a lot of those baskets for those big guys.
It's hard to ask you to give us your scouting report or what you're going to do, but talk about your own squad and the advantages you feel they have towards the UCLA.
Well, I don't know that we have any advantages in the game. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're going to lose the basketball game, but I do know for us to have an opportunity to win the game, we're going to have to try to rebound with them. We're going to have to try to limit their transition baskets. We're going to have to try to keep them off of the free throw line, take away all of their easy baskets. And sometimes it's easier said than done. And we're going to have to go out and shoot a good percentage. Kevin talked earlier about margin of error. We don't have a great margin of error, so I think the key is taking away all of the easy, cheap baskets.
Yeah, it certainly isn't. UCLA will have somewhat of a size advantage as far as the guard positions. When you look at that, the guys coming off your bench, are you going to use them, utilize them a little more?
Well, I think we're going to have to. We generally only go 3 deep off the bench and play 8, but we play a different group every night. We have a guy named Paul Shirley who hasn't played in the NCAA tournament. Could probably play against UCLA because of the style of play that we're going to play against. But I don't know that we're going to try to expend a lot of their energy, because one factor in the NCAA tournament that you have to think about is that the timeouts are 2.5 minutes long, so guys don't get tired. I know I told our guys that the timeouts were 3.5 minutes long so they wouldn't get tired. Our 2 guards, J.C. Holloway and Dedrick Willoughby, played 40 minutes in both of the games, and talked to them after the tournament. They felt like they never expended too much energy. They felt like they were ready to go play again.
All right, so we'll get these guys picks. Who do you like in this game?
I'm picking Tim. I mean, no question. I think I like the fact that they're going to make those guys that had 12 and 12 points, Tim's going to make those 2 guys beat him. He's not going to let those other guys beat him. His margin for error is small. Their margin for error is large. They can play bad and still beat Tim. Tim's got to play great to beat them, but I think they will.
All right, real quickly, your pick.
Well, I picked Tim to go to the Final Four, and I'm not going to leave it now.
Staying with it. When we come back, we will hear from the coaches once again get their picks for the Final Four.
March Madness Sweet 16 Special has been brought to you by Boston Market, always the right meal. By Miller Lite, who reminds you that anything can happen at Miller time. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
Welcome back to Chicago, and a reminder, tomorrow night at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time, March Madness continues with our Sweet 16 Special. We have some time left, and we want to get the coaches' picks of the Final Four. Tim?
Minnesota, North Carolina, Kansas, and Utah.
I haven't seen a coach pick their own team once in the 2 weeks we've been doing this.
I know. That's tough to do. And then I like Kansas to win it all.
All right, let's go to you, Kelvin.
I'll go with the 4 number ones. I think that each team has played well. I think there's hurdles in each regional for them. But the 4 number ones have done a great job getting there. I'll stick with them.
And your 5th team?
I will stay. No question.
Still going with Iowa State. Kevin?
I'm going to go with Kansas, Carolina, Kentucky, and Clemson. I think Kentucky wins it all. I really do.
I think a lot of people agree they have retooled. It's either them or Kansas, according to many experts out there. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you once again tomorrow night. March Madness continues. Our Sweet 16 Special is done for tonight. Thanks to all the coaches and to all of you. We'll see you again tomorrow night.